Welcome. This is Storyline English, your place to relax and listen. I'm so glad you're here. Picture yourself in a small, quiet village by the sea. The air is cool. You can smell salt and wind. And far away, on the water, something is moving slowly through the mist. It is a ship. A big wooden ship with tall white sails. It is going somewhere far away, somewhere unknown. Today, we begin a journey together, a journey across time and across the ocean. We are going to discover the story of ships, how people first learned to sail, how those ships carried people, ideas, and dreams across the world, and how those long sea journeys changed history forever. This is a story of adventure, of discovery, and of quiet courage. And as you listen, you will also practice your English, slowly, calmly, without stress. That is what Storyline English is here for. If you are new here, welcome. We are so happy to have you. And if you have been with us before, welcome back. You already know that every story here is made for you, the English learner who wants to grow. Please like this story and subscribe to Storyline English so you never miss a new journey. And now, let us sail together. Our story begins a very, very long time ago. A long time ago, thousands of years before our world looked the way it does today, people lived near rivers and along the edges of the sea. These people did not have cars. They did not have roads, but they had something important. They had water. And water could take them places. No one knows exactly who built the first boat. That moment is lost in history. But we know it happened a very long time ago. Perhaps someone watched a log float on the river. Perhaps a child pushed a piece of wood across a stream and watched it move. And slowly, slowly, over many years, people learned. They learned to shape wood. They learned to tie pieces together. They learned to use a flat piece of wood to push through the water and move forward. The first boats were very small. They were made for rivers and for calm water near the land. They carried fish. They carried food. Sometimes they carried 1 or 2 people across a lake. These were not ships. They were just simple rafts and small wooden canoes. But they were the beginning of something very important. And here is the thing about human nature. Once people learned to move across water, they wanted to go further. They looked out at the sea. They saw the horizon, and they asked a simple, powerful question. What is out there? That question changed everything. And in our story today, we are going to follow that question all the way from the first wooden boat to the great ships that built empires and connected the world. The story of great ships truly begins in the ancient world. Long ago, in a place we now call the Mediterranean Sea, a people called the Phoenicians learned to build ships unlike any the world had seen before. They lived along the coast where Lebanon and Syria are today. They were traders. They loved the sea, and they were not afraid of it. The Phoenicians built ships with deep, curved hulls, made to hold large amounts of goods. They filled these ships with glass, purple cloth, silver, and cedar wood. Then they sailed. They sailed west, past the islands of the Mediterranean, all the way to the coast of what is now Spain. Some historians believe they even sailed around the whole continent of Africa, thousands of years before European explorers tried to do the same. What made the Phoenicians great was not only their ships, but their courage and their skill. They sailed at night, using the stars to guide them. The North Star was their compass, the wind was their engine, and the sea, dangerous and wide, was their road. They did not build empires with armies. They built something different. They built connections, ports, markets, and relationships between people across the Mediterranean world. Their ships carried not only goods, but ideas, languages, alphabets. And this is where the story becomes truly remarkable. The alphabet you are using right now to read these English words, it traces back, in part, to the Phoenicians and the connections their ships made possible. After the Phoenicians came other great sailors. The ancient Greeks built a different kind of ship. It was long, narrow, and fast. It was called a trireme. It had 3 rows of oars on each side, with men rowing together in perfect rhythm. These ships were not made for carrying goods. They were made for war. The Greeks used their triremes to protect their cities and to fight their enemies. One of the most famous battles in history happened on water. It was the Battle of Salamis in the year 480 before Christ. The Persian king Xerxes brought a huge fleet of ships to attack Greece. The Greeks were smaller in number, but they knew the narrow waters near the island of Salamis very well. The Persian ships were large and slow in those tight passages. The Greek triremes moved fast and hit hard. Greece won that battle, and that victory protected a small civilization that would go on to change the world with its ideas about democracy, philosophy, and science. Then came Rome. The Romans, at first, were not sailors. They were soldiers who loved the land. But they understood something important. To build a great empire, you must also control the sea. So they built ships, hundreds of them. They fought the Carthaginians in a series of wars called the Punic Wars, and they learned to be great at sea. Their ships carried soldiers, food, and supplies across the Mediterranean. Rome called that sea Mare Nostrum, our sea, and for hundreds of years, it truly was theirs. Many centuries passed. Empires rose and fell, and then, from the cold north, from the land of ice and long winters, came sailors unlike any before them. They were the Vikings, and their ships were a work of quiet genius. The Viking longship was beautiful in its design. It was long and narrow, like the triremes of Greece, but it had one important difference. It could sail in very shallow water. It could go up rivers, far into the land, and it could also cross the open ocean. This made the Vikings something new. They were not only coastal sailors, they were ocean explorers. The Vikings sailed west across the North Atlantic. They reached Iceland, then Greenland, and then, around the year 1000, a Viking named Leif Eriksson sailed even further west. He reached a land he called Vinland. We believe today that Vinland was part of North America. Leif Eriksson and his crew became the first Europeans ever to set foot in the Americas. And they did it nearly 500 years before Christopher Columbus. But the Vikings did not only go west, they also went east and south. They sailed down the rivers of Russia. They reached Constantinople, the great city of the Byzantine Empire. They traded, they fought, and they carried their stories across a huge part of the world. all because of one simple but brilliant ship. The Longship was their key, and the sea was the door it opened. Now we reach a moment in history that changed the whole world. It was the late 1400s. A new kind of ship had been built in Portugal and Spain. It was called the Caravel. It was small but strong. It could sail against the wind, something older ships could not do easily, and it could carry men and supplies across very long distances. In 1488, a Portuguese explorer named Bartolomeu Dias sailed around the southern tip of Africa. That tip is now called the Cape of Good Hope. This was a discovery of enormous importance, because it meant that ships could now sail from Europe all the way around Africa and reach the rich spice markets of Asia. A sea road to the east now existed, and that road would bring enormous wealth to whoever controlled it. Then, in 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed west from Spain, trying to find a shorter way to Asia. He did not find Asia. He found the Americas, a world that most Europeans did not know existed. And in 1519, a Portuguese explorer named Ferdinand Magellan began the most extraordinary sea journey in history. His fleet left Spain and sailed west. They crossed the Atlantic. They went around the southern tip of South America. They crossed the Pacific Ocean, the largest ocean on Earth. And eventually, one of his ships returned to Spain from the east. For the first time in history, human beings had sailed all the way around the world. These journeys were not comfortable. Sailors ate hard bread full of insects. They ran out of fresh water. Many died from disease. But still, they sailed, because the discovery waiting on the other side was worth the danger. The ships of the Age of Discovery did not only bring knowledge, they brought power, and they brought great suffering. After explorers came traders, and after traders came empires. Portugal built trading posts along the coasts of Africa, India, and Asia. Spain took control of large parts of the Americas. Later, Britain, France, and Holland all built their own fleets. And each of these countries used their ships to take land, to move people, and to control trade routes across the globe. Ships carried silver and gold from the Americas to Europe. Ships carried spices, silk, and tea from Asia. They carried sugar from the Caribbean. And, terribly, they also carried enslaved people from the coast of Africa to the Americas. Millions of people were taken from their homes and forced onto ships in the most painful and cruel part of this history. The ships that built empires also carried human tragedy. This is an important part of the story, and it must not be forgotten. At the same time, ships were carrying something else, something lighter but powerful. They carried books, plants, animals, languages, religions. The exchange of things, people, and ideas between the continents changed every part of the world. Foods we think of as traditional today, tomatoes in Italian cooking, chilies in Indian food, potatoes in Ireland. All of these came from the Americas, carried across the ocean on ships. The world became connected, and it has stayed connected ever since. And so our journey comes gently to its end. We started in a small village near the sea, looking at a distant ship on the water, and we followed that ship across thousands of years of history. From the first simple rafts on quiet rivers to the great wooden ships of the Phoenicians and the Greeks, to the longships of the Vikings and the Caravels of the Age of Discovery. We saw how ships carried people, goods, ideas, and empires across the oceans of the world. The sea is a powerful teacher. It teaches us that curiosity is stronger than fear, that the desire to discover something new has always been part of who we are as human beings. Every time someone looked at the horizon and asked, "What is out there?" the world grew a little larger, a little more connected. And you, right now, are doing something similar. You are on your own journey, a journey of learning. Every story you listen to, every English sentence you understand, every new word that becomes familiar, that is your own kind of discovery. You are exploring a new language, the way those early sailors explored the sea, slowly, with patience, one step at a time. So keep listening, keep learning. The journey is the reward. If this story gave you something today, a new word, a quiet moment, a little joy, please share it with someone who is also learning English. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the story you liked the most. And subscribe to Storyline English so our next story finds its way to you. We will be here, waiting, with another journey ready to begin. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.